This is the .NET Dev Show where we talk about all things .NET, and I and Lance are big fans of .NET cross-platform story, which is .NET MAUI going forward. And Lance has been migrating an in-store, real-world app for iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac from Xamarin.World onto .NET MAUI. We have looked through a lot of code. We have migrated a lot of assets that Lance was using. Now it's time to maybe start publishing it out and see how that process works. Where does DevOps play into this, and so on. So that's what we're going to do today. But since I have you, Lance, and you are very smart, Lance does a lot of support for us. He leads the team. So anytime you're using like Telerik UI or Kenda UI and you have run into issues, it's Lance and his team that does take a look at your support questions a lot. So how about, Lance, I put you in the spot. You look at something that I've been building and you tell me what I'm doing wrong. How about that?
Sounds like fun.
All right. Let's start with that, and then I promise we'll switch to what Lance is trying to show in just a minute. But I was noticing some weird behavior, and I was going to ask you what I'm doing wrong. All right. Let's see if technologies work with us today. I can share my screen. Yes. All right. We are good here. Oh, nope. There we go. And there. All right. So in case this is something that you have not heard, every Monday, so I'm excited about .NET MAUI a little bit. We have been doing stuff with it for a few years now. So every Monday, I put out a little newsletter type feed called Sands of MAUI. Kind of a catchy name, but we try to look at, there's developer excitement around .NET MAUI, so we try to capture the top 5 things that matter and relate to developers for that week. And this post goes up every Monday by midday, and it's just it's an ongoing way. It kind of selfishly is a way for me to kind of keep track of everything that's going on, because there's a lot. So you can come to this and you can get .NET MAUI news every week, or you can subscribe to this. But again, it's an email. We all know how our inboxes get. Wouldn't it be nice if this was an app? So that's what I've been building up a little bit. And Lance, this is just to make our good friend Maddie Monticula happy. This app is written entirely and, albeit a little painfully, in Visual Studio Code. So this is purely on my Mac, and it's missing a few things compared to full Visual Studio that Lance is used to in Windows, but it works. It works
It's
for
a
the
lot
most
better
part.
than it used to be. Like, you couldn't do this
Far
kind
better.
of stuff before.
Far
and
better.
Now it's nice.
Yeah, far better. Okay, so let me go ahead and run this app, and I will show you what I'm seeing. Let me choose a view here. Oh, why is it saying build only? Yeah, it should know how to build. Wait, did I mess anything up? Because now it's complaining that I cannot build.
Even before you run it, I already found the problem, most likely. But yeah, let's see what's happening.
Hold on. Now it doesn't like my builds. What's going on with that? So let's close the folder once, and we'll just reopen in case that was messed up in some way. Sands of MAUI, yes, open that. Close, and let's just go to a view, because that's how you get this. Oh, it's missing the debug target. Maybe that's why. All right, iPhone 15 Max Pro. There you go. All right, so let's go ahead and look at this view, which is the first view. We're going to go ahead and run this thing. So it's going to do a .NET build, and it's launching this up on an iPhone 15 Max simulator. So it's gotten a few things. I have run this app, so it's not going to do it from scratch. Oh, this is one thing, Lance. I sometimes don't see the splash screen on simulators, especially the iOS ones. I'm not sure what's going on some of these, but that's a minor thing. But you come here to this app, and if it's the first time, we will go, oh, that's a notification thing that comes in. But if it's the first time, this is coming from Azure Cosmos DB. We pull down the data and then we cache it so that subsequent times.
Okay.
So it's just a list of things, all the issues starting from 2021, and in here, and there is a detailed view of obviously. So you can tap on one, then if we pull down the actual issue in question, and over here is a little bit of a hamburger menu, which is actually the shell, and it has a couple of things, pointers to .NET MAUI, who are all the people involved, and blah blah blah. So and it's made with some of the Telerik love, so that's all in there. So notice that in this app shell, I have a couple of flyout options, like 4 of them. And somehow, like the first one, like the first time around, it works. And then the first, which is the list of issues, like I'm tapping on it, it actually doesn't navigate back to that. So I'm not sure why it's losing it. So let me show you the code here. Let's go ahead and close this. So when the app starts up, we come down here. MauiProgram.cs. It's got nothing special about it. I'm using Telerik. I am using Maui. I'm registering all my views, registering my view models and my services. And then we come down to app shell. And it's got a little bit of structure here for the flyouts and how the flyout header is supposed to look like, and so on. But then we just get into the flyout items, and each one of these are the 4 things I have. It's pointing to the actual view behind that page. And so all of these are the same. And then the detail page, even though I'm not showing it in the navigation, it's registered as a route in case I use it. So can you tell just by looking at this what I might be doing wrong, like why the first navigation doesn't want to work after the first time around?
I mean, I don't see anything particularly wrong here, right? You've got your flyout items defined. You have them as tabs.
And I mean, I explicitly define the routes, even though I'm not really using them.
Yeah,
But post the
still
first
good
time
enough.
around, yeah, I somehow, at least on iPhone 15, it doesn't seem to work. Let me try a different one. Maybe it
A
cannot
good
be
way to diagnose that is to subscribe to the event handlers for the selection, right? Because if you're getting a breakpoint hit and it's not navigating, then you know the issue is within the navigation itself. If the breakpoint is not getting hit, then the event handler is never being used. Um, Let me see if I can pull up what event handler that is.
Well, I mean, the event handler in this case is kind of built into the shell, right?
Yeah,
Because
you
I
would
don't,
subscribe in the show.
yeah, yeah. Because I don't like have a on navigated to or from on of these pages. It's just looking at the view and just pointing you to
Yeah,
where to go to
I mean,
rather.
normally you wouldn't keep them there. This is more or less just for diagnostic purposes, right? Because you want to understand. Right now, it's a black box. So you have this black
Yeah,
box of when it's being loaded and what's happening with the data. And as things are going wrong, you can make a million different guesses and never really have a closer understanding. And by throwing in your on navigated to or on navigated from, just temporarily, and you put your
yeah.
breakpoints there, and you're like, okay, it's hitting this one, but it never hits this other one. You're like, oh, now I understand. So it's somewhere after here. Is it what you can do now? Um,
So the only thing I can do is see if it's hitting my page.
yeah. So I, it's like I'm gonna pull it up on another tab real quick. The show has some events that work for all of those.
Well,
And
there's the one called on navigated to, right? Pretty
yeah.
sure it is.
Layout item selection, current item.
Oh, I see. Our friends are showing up. Hey, Napam. Good to see you. Good to see you. We are getting to the good stuff with
Yeah.
Lance. I'm just stuck, and I'm trying to ask a dumb question to Lance.
Well, let's see if that even works. Put like a debug right line there and put a breakpoint, and then let's make sure it's getting. I think it's like on tab navigating.
Well, but I mean, even if the tab navigates, it should come to this page, right? I don't think it's even like firing.
But that's what we don't know, right? We don't know when you click on that button, it's not going back to the first tab. Is it trying to navigate there, or is the button not working at all?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
on your shell page, you have so
Give
we
me, give me a
yeah
second to. Page on navigated to.
But that would only work on, if you put that on the shell root, that would work just on the shell. So what we want is the shell override for the tab. Or we could do it as a loaded event handler on the item. So if you go into the
shell.
XAML, yeah, and then just for that shell content, see, I don't think shell content has events. That's right.
No.
So what we want here is an event handler or an override, because you're not making an instance of shell content yourself.
No.
You're telling it, here's the data template I want you to use. We don't
Yep.
have an overridable class, right? Or a
Yep.
place to write it.
Exactly. So when you need that template, go ahead and use dependency injection and give me an instance of that thing.
Yeah, exactly. So what we can do is we can check for shell content events.
Yeah.
Right, show pages.
Show lifecycle, modeless model. I don't know. Yeah, I can debug later on and try to figure it out.
Yeah, but here it is. Are you in the documentation now? There's a page just for it. So actually, it's the third item where it says .NET Show Navigation.
This one?
Right there. Yep, that one. And then navigation events. Bingo. So what you can do is hook into.
The shell defines a navigating event. And then there's an on navigating method is called when the navigating event fires. Similarly, on navigated is called.
Okay, so
so
then
tap into these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's the example right a little lower, and that will give you that code block right there.
Yeah.
We can hook into that. Yep.
So this is something I will do on the shell itself, not on the page.
Yes.
Trying to see if what it's doing to go.
It works very similar to a content page, and the shell knows to use it for navigating between the templates that it creates. So yeah, go ahead and copy and paste that into the code behind. You already had a head start.
This was on the page
Not
itself.
this one. Yeah, get rid of that one and then go to app shell.cs.
Yep.
Exactly. There's a little bit of a bug in the last bracket. The documentation left a comment there by accident. No, you did it right, but they.
Oh, they did it. They did it. Gotcha. All right. If only it was open source and we could fix it. We can submit a pull request.
All right. Yeah. Now throw a breakpoint on 14, and let's spin it up again.
Yeah. All right. Start debugging.
Even if we take a look at this later on, I have another bit of feedback to give you about the list view. All right, there's our first hit. Go ahead and just continue. We know that's running, right?
Okay, so this one we do know. All right, so goes out. I'm going to do a different one here. Let's do that. I want to look at the args here. See, its current is the issues. The target is Maui. Okay, so we get that. Yeah, I don't want the navigation right now. Okay, now let's come back here. Yep. See, it's not even firing.
Bingo. Now we can at least not lose our mind trying to figure out what's going on. We know that the click isn't working for this.
Yeah, but it works for the other ones. So see, in this one,
something hidden on top of it, right? What if there's a hidden UI element that we can't see?
So this one might be hovering. Now it's going to Telerik. This is all good. So,
but you never actually click that button in the first place. When the app launches, it lands there by default, right?
Yeah. I never.
So we don't know if that even works at all.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean? So
let's go. Oh, I see. You're thinking there's anything on top of it. Let's see.
It could be a visual element on top of it, or it could be just it's misconfigured. Like,
So here's a flyout tab. So the only thing that I have in the shell is flyout. Now, is it just the first one that's not working? Because
yeah,
this item
34. Wait, item template byte icon. Okay, 47, right? 47 is that first item.
Yep, that's the first item. I wonder if I move it back to the it not being the first item, does it work?
Yeah, try that. That's a quick way to eliminate whether it is the item itself or the position in the list.
All right.
Because we know for a fact that the Telerik one loaded, right? We saw the web page.
Yep, that's all good. And I'm still debugging here. Da-da-da, start. Chat room, I see the questions somebody's asking. We'll get to that in just a second. It's starting up. So this is all, by default, it should come to the shell, and it's going to try to show the first one here. Yeah, so it shows the Maui one. That's good.
Yep.
So now let's try going to this one. Yeah, it is because it's the first one. See, this one here, now it knows, hey, I'm on Maui. I am trying to get to the issues, so go.
And now try to click the Telerik one though. So the first one on the list, try to click it.
Yep. Nope. See,
Yep.
there's nothing.
So I
It's
think there
only the
might be
first
something
one.
on top of it. And one way you can do is comment out the header.
Wait, which header?
Do you have the header template for the flyout page? What if there is a visual element that is invisible, but it's overlaying or extending that flyout header area, and we can
Oh, I
eliminate
see.
that by commenting 19 to 32.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe it's something about the way the grid height request is, so it's
It
kind of
could be, yeah.
coming on top. Interesting.
The easy way to eliminate, get rid of it. It'll look ugly for a second, but we'll know for sure. And whether to waste any more time in this
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah. See, this is why we need two pairs of eyes, so I don't do dumb things. All right, now you don't need to debug. Let's just go without that. Just thinking.
So because we had the ordering already, it starts on the page. Yeah,
Yep.
then go to that one, and then we'll go back to the other one.
Yep.
Bingo. So it's
So,
something in the header that's the issue.
yeah. Okay.
All right. Problem
Good.
one solved.
Yeah. Good to know. I'll fix up the header. I was trying to get too fancy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a good thing to talk about, right? We're talking about like, how do you know where to diagnose and look, and
Yep.
how do
Yeah.
you divide up these things and how you think
Yeah.
about them, right?
Yeah,
Um,
and this is also a classic example, where we, talk about .NET MAUI apps being, so easy and it just works seamlessly. There's a lot of attention in the details that you need to understand how the moving pieces work, how view models are registered, how the views come into play, and how you pass parameters like big objects between pages. So there's a lot going on, and you just need to understand, some
yeah,
of the moving pieces, how like I was having like styles that were getting overridden. So folks might not know there are certain styles that are getting dropped in the .NET MAUI templates. There are some colors, there are some styles, and then if you're using something like Telerik UI, we drop in some more styles of our own. I am actually utilizing a CSS because I'm styling some of the actual
nice.
body of the HTML that's coming down with my CSS. So there are some moving pieces, understanding what assets are raw versus what assets are truly shared, and then so on. So, yeah. All right.
And
All
when these
right.
templates first came out, Microsoft and team did not give us those styles. So there was a lot of issues on light theme and dark theme and things not looking even. So they said, okay, out of the box, here are the most common controls. And we use the app theme aware extension so that it'll change light and dark, make that easy for you. Um, it's a head start. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. Do we have a question pending? Oh, do I
Yeah, I
end
was
these
trying
things?
to.
Yeah.
No, I was trying to read this. Pratik, Lance, can you read as well?
Yeah, so we have, can I ask you a .NET more like C# question? In my current project using ASP.NET MVC, we're doing localization of the web app in Thailand. But how to convert the website's alerts in Thai using that localization, basically. That's a good question. One of the guys on my team, Patrick, he is an expert in this. We won't be able to do it live on the show, but if you already have an account, you can open a ticket and I'll escalate it to him. Or if you open a forum post, you can send me a tweet with the link to it, and I'll have it asked, and we can dig deeper for you. But if I
Yeah,
understand correctly, it's the notification that pops up that's outside the body of the app.
well, I mean, shouldn't the notification be somehow like maybe it's not in the DOM, but it's somewhere on in the app. So it's a matter of maybe not reading certain resources right.
It could be a scope issue.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a lots of places that this could go
lots of
wrong.
places.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Pratik, maybe even like give us a shout out on X or Twitter as we used to call it, or just give us like a link to a forum post on a Stack Overflow post or something. If it's like completely generic ASP.NET
Yeah.
that you're doing, and somebody from the community is going to try to help
We'll
you out.
definitely take a look. Yeah.
Yeah.
Back
And
in my day, we called it Twitter. Yeah.
have you seen my X's?
Yeah.
Yeah, that fun stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Do you want to talk about CI and .NET MAUI?
Yeah.
Anything that's on the table.
Yeah. All right. So if you're ready, I'm going to bring your desktop up.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, before you go to CI, can you give us like a breakdown? So is the map, well, first up, what is the app that you were doing? Is it completely done now? And are you ready to push it out to the app stores? And where does CI/CD come in?
Yeah. So for the past year, and part of this series that we're talking about today is taking a Xamarin.Forms app, like highly polished, production ready. Took a couple years to build it in the first place, right? And that's been in the store for several years now. And it also has Azure DevOps backends and all this kind of stuff. And modernizing it to .NET MAUI. And I've been doing that for the past maybe 6, 7 months or so, right? On and off, not every day, but now I'm at the point where it's done, and you have a choice to automate the builds, right? Because when you're building it, you just use Visual Studio, like we did, right? You just click deploy, and you can even use Visual Studio to build your publishable packages. Those are one-offs. VS has some really cool features where you can import your Apple certificates and actually build a publishable IPA or a package for Google Play, for example.
That stuff is for mere mortals like me who would build it one at a time and then publish it. Not Lance. He wants everything automated.
Well, I mean, the first couple of times because you want it in the store, it's okay. But as you're building it, it's like, oh, I want to make this change, and then like, oh, I have to spend another 45 minutes to do this because I did this. And yes, it is a bit of an upfront investment to build your pipeline, but from then on, it gives you like dividends for the remainder of the time that you have that application.
And you're talking about apps where it's just Lance working on it, or it's just me. The moment you have like 500 people working on an app, you want that pipeline, because otherwise you're going to pay a big price every single update.
And the other benefit is they can build their branch, right? So in order to use the same pipeline, they can reuse the same pipeline for their branch and take all the benefits, and everyone gets their own builds and tests. It's like, it's an amazing thing. You know,
so
10 years ago, I would not have thought of any of this, but today I can't go without it.
Yeah, I think DevOps is coming closer and closer, and it's so easy for developers to get in and configure everything. Okay, so before you get into this, what are some options? Like, I have a Maui app that's ready. I'm ready to publish this to the stores or enterprise distribution. What are my options? What are some things I have to look at?
So to think about it before you even actually throw a brand name out there, right? So what is CI? It is a computer building the code, right? That computer can be a little laptop you have at home and stuck underneath a bookshelf somewhere, like a Mac Mini is a good option. Or it can be up in the cloud that Microsoft hosts those build machines. What matters most is that you usually have your developer certificates installed on there, and you have things that you need to sign your code.
Yeah. So it's a machine that you would want to have admin access to,
Yes.
be it under your desk or in the cloud.
Yep. And the good thing about cloud options is that it's not like a virtual machine where you have admin to the whole machine. You just need administrator rights for
Just
the container that the app is running in. And container is an overblown term, but
Mhm.
it's like a brand new machine spun up just for you, just to do that build, and then it's thrown away when it's done.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Chat room has the funny comment where
Yeah.
haven't you
Yeah.
seen that? Like
Yeah.
any enterprise you go to, server rooms will have things like
Yeah.
yellow sticky notes like "Do not touch this."
Or even worse, all the passwords on the sticky note on the keyboard. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But,
All right.
so
So
what are the options, right? I didn't answer your question.
yes, what are the
Uh,
options?
we have GitHub, right? And they're called GitHub Actions. And
Mhm.
what your code runs in is called a workflow.
Yep.
It's a piece of YAML that has instructions. Or you have Azure DevOps, right? These are the two easiest ones, in my opinion. You have other things, Travis CI, you have GitLab. They all, the reason why I mentioned it, it's just a computer is because all the other services you have, it is just a computer.
Yep.
And you tell it what to do. And that's what the YAML are. But for Azure DevOps is the easiest. So if you're not familiar with just CIC in general, I probably would say go with Azure DevOps because you can use a GUI and drag and drop things around. You don't have to do everything in YAML. YAML is it's like
Yeah.
tab indented code. It's kind of it looks like Python, but it's just little steps that have instruction, and we'll see some of that today.
YAML is YAML.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. And the other one is GitHub Actions, and it also uses YAML.
Yeah.
It's slightly different flavor, but almost identical because GitHub Actions did originate from Azure DevOps, right? So the history of GitHub is Microsoft acquired GitHub and like all these different things and synergies and like, hey, why doesn't GitHub have built-in CI? It's perfect for GitHub, and that's what they did. So
Yeah. Yeah.
inside your repo, you have built-in CI/CD, even if you don't know it.
Yeah, absolutely. So GitHub Actions, Azure DevOps, looks like Chatroom is fond of Azure DevOps. Now I'm going to drop the A word here, Lance.
Yep.
App Center. You used that before for Xamarin?
It worked good for Xamarin.Forms. I had a couple apps out there that it was really good to do. I haven't heard it in a while because I'm not sure if it supports MAUI yet or if it's going
Um,
to.
all right.
Yeah.
Neither Lance nor me work for Microsoft, but let me just say I would not use that
Yeah.
for dotnet MAUI going forward because there's a lot of uncertainty about that product because I think a lot of what it does is kind of already rolled into the other things. So yeah.
It was built with the just the iOS and Android apps in mind and make it easy. And it was easy to use. You just drop it down, it's like, hey, this is my certificate. Oh, you don't have one? Just upload it, and it just works, right? But it was built with that particular thing in mind. Works very well for that particular thing, and I haven't seen it move to newer frameworks and ability to run it yet. So I'm not sure.
So Chatroom here is asking about good resources for Azure DevOps and local IaaS. I'm not sure I completely understand the question, but I think is the question total eclipse like how you set it up locally first, or would you do that on local IaaS?
Well, what you can do is you have an agent, right? So an agent is the
Uh,
actual computer, and Azure DevOps let you choose have the machine in their cloud, right? And you spin up one of their default Windows machines, or you can have something called a custom agent. It turns your local computer into an Azure DevOps build machine. So it's just a tiny little script. You download it, you sign in with your Azure DevOps account, and boom, you look in your CI/CD cloud stuff, and all the code runs on this machine now. So what you could do is after that build, deploy it to that local IIS.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Yeah, looks like people have agents running on home
Yep.
lab. Now,
Yep.
Thindel is kind of hardcore running labs and servers under his desk.
Linux agents, Mac OS agents, and Windows agents. I love them. Yep. And they're handy in this particular in today's topic too, because Although it's gotten easier to install certificates into cloud machines, right? It's just a one-time in and out. But it is also handy to have that those code signing certificates installed in your custom agent, and then all you have to say is sign my code and the name of the certificate, and it works.
Yeah. Okay. So on that front, two questions. First up, Total Eclipse is asking Linux agents too.
Yeah,
Yes. Okay.
yeah,
All right.
pretty cool.
Okay. And back to this. So you do need your provisioning certificate, maybe once, but you do need that to sign, don't you?
To sign your public builds, yes, but you don't need
Public.
it for CD to be handy. And that's one
Okay.
of the things I'll show you today is that I can show you how to build the Maui app in all four different target things without needing to code sign everything. This is a
Gotcha.
sanity check, right? You checked in some code and everything builds and everything is still working. So you could be at your day-to-day work, not time to release something new to the market, but you want to make sure your code works and runs in your test pass. So,
Yeah. 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 Okay.
matter of
Yeah.
fact, what everyone is seeing on my screen right now is I have this DevOps examples repository on GitHub, and I have
Oh, so
15.
GitHub.com lands DevOps examples. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's just GitHub is case sensitive, so there would be DevOps examples. But
Do
in
you have
here,
the link? Let me pull it up as
oh
well.
yeah, let me put that in the chat, right?
Yep, if you don't mind.
I can't post in the public chat, but you can put it over there, I think.
Yeah, I can copy
Okay.
and put it over.
And the reason I built this is over the years we have the same questions asked over and over. Are you saying have the same problems like how do I restore packages from a private NuGet server? I want to build it, right? And this shows you how to do all of that. I have many different project types. Of course, .NET MAUI is one of them, but it could go back to Ajax. You think that's big enough? There we go.
Yep, yeah, that's fine.
We have Ajax, ASP.NET Core, ASP.NET MVC, Blazor, and I even show you how to do builds to Docker and Docker Hub. You can deploy your whole app and its container right to Docker Hub right as soon as you're done checking in the code. Like it's completely hands off. It's wonderful. And of course, .NET MAUI is in here. And let me make this a little easier to see. This is the .NET MAUI app that used to, right? So it is the
Mhm.
actual solution that you would have locally, the same code. It's part of your Git repository. So you have your solution and your CS proj there. So why couldn't we build it up on GitHub? And that's basically what this project shows you how to do.
Well, I mean, a .NET MAUI build isn't a simple thing like a
No.
web app build. You need target platforms and corresponding runtimes
Yeah.
to pull it all together.
And that's why I think today's topic is a pretty good one because we'll be able to just take a quick look at each one of them and say, oh, that's how you can build it on a Mac, right? Or that's how you can get that target framework. There are clever ways. Let me scroll down a little bit. And that doesn't give me the jump link. Oh, there it is now. They moved it. So if I switch over to the actual YAML for this,
Here
can I
comes the
collapse this
YAML.
thing? There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So at a high level, right? So imagine a .NET MAUI project, and you want to do Android, Windows, iOS, and Mac OS, Mac Catalyst, right? So you think, okay, I have four separate builds. Some of them I can do on Windows, some I can do on Mac host, build host, and they have a lot of things that are common between them, but some are different. So the things that are common, what you would do is you just set up some environment variables for all the jobs to use. So you don't have to keep typing the same thing over and over. And it makes it easier not to make a mistake in the spelling and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, but hold up here for a second. Before you go into your YAML, like
Yep.
what's the build agent? Like who's running this? Is it Windows? Is it Mac OS? Or is it
You can
Linux?
define it.
Okay,
And that's
you're
what each
defining it.
one of
Okay,
these jobs are.
that's
Yep.
fine.
So
Okay, okay.
I can't really collapse here. Yeah, I can't collapse it here, but so here's our Android job. If I scroll down a little bit, here's the Windows job.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the iOS job. And each one of them has a different agent. And the way you do that is you tell GitHub Actions and Azure DevOps what agent you want this pipeline to be built on. In this case, I'm saying, okay, I want you to use Windows 2022. If you ever want to know what's on these machines, there is a big list in the GitHub documentation that tells you all the default software that's on there. If you do need something special, you can pull it in, but mostly everything you need is already there, minus a couple of things. So if we start with this Windows build, where's the Android one? Here it is. Android, we can build on Windows or Mac.
Yeah.
Right. So in this case, I just put it on Windows, coin toss. Right. If I was concerned about money, I might choose a different option, maybe even like a Linux. I don't know if a Linux tier, maybe. But what matters is that I tell it what I need to use. Right. First step. Now, if you're not familiar with YAML, it's basically you give it a title. This can be whatever you want it to be. Right. Just a list of jobs. And then you tell it, these are the job names that I want. And what does it run on? Windows. Okay. Now, what do we do when we get this Windows machine? You get a brand new copy of the Windows machine started up. And the very first thing I tell it to do is, hey, let's get the code. Right? I need the code first. And we download the code. Next thing I tell it is, hey, I would like you to have the .NET 8 SDK. And it says set up. So this little uses thing, these are actually what's called GitHub Actions. You would think the whole thing is GitHub Actions. It kind of has a dual meaning to it. These here are part of a library of different scripts and tools and components and software that you can pull in to your runner whenever you need them. I've written several, and there are some that are from Microsoft that are just work out of the box. And this is a perfect example. Now, you could always use the CI. You could download the SDK and then install it manually, or you can do it this way.
So, question, based on this is job, right? Based on how you are running this, you're saying if you go to Azure DevOps, it's going to be a new machine every time?
Correct. So if it's not a custom agent, right? A custom agent is one you install on your own hardware, right? Then it's always that machine, and you give that agent the name like my laptop. But for the default ones, yes, has to be a new one for security reasons, for performance reasons. Like there's a bunch of reasons that you get a brand new clean machine. Behind the scenes, these are actually containers or Windows container, Windows for the container,
But there is no caching. So like every single time you're going to get the .NET SDK and the MAUI SDK to even do the build.
Yes, that's why you define ahead of time that you install these, because it doesn't have them when it first starts up. You can cache things between jobs. You can pass things between jobs, and you can cache things as an output for the build. They're called artifacts. Right? So you have an artifact, but that gets stored in a blob somewhere. It's not like they keep the VM alive and then have it in the VM and you can pull it out whenever you want. Instead, the machine builds what it needs to build and then downloads that artifact off of the container into some storage that you can get at later.
Yeah. Oh, I see down below. You're literally going out to get the MAUI workloads, restore the NuGet packages, and then build by.
The only weird thing here is me generating version number for it. Like I like to have the versioning based on a date. So it'll be 2024 dot the month and date, a 4-digit month and date combination, and then maybe some patch number or something. And this is a little trick to get it. And what I do is I take the GitHub run number, because every time you run this pipeline or workflow, it increments. So it's a convenient way for you to build your packages with a new version number every time. And then here's the secret for .NET MAUI. .NET workload install MAUI.
Yep.
It's,
So if anybody is getting a brand new machine, like these are literally the steps you get to get .NET and then get .NET MAUI on top of it. Yep.
And then now we are down to the project specific stuff, right? So we say .NET Restore, my CS Proj, and .NET Build, my CS Proj. But to your point, we also needed to know the target framework, right? Because this is .NET MAUI project, This CS project has multiple target frameworks listed in the CS project itself. So you need to tell it, which one do you want to use? We're telling it, oh, we want .NET 8 Android.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So you're literally saying .NET Build, here is my target framework. So pick this one.
Yep. And the
And
end of
so
that job is it built it.
couple of questions. Up top, like what if you have NuGet dependencies? Like I see the ones there for Telerik or anywhere where it's like behind an authentication. So you're pulling down a private NuGet feed. How does it use your credentials to go do that?
So what we do is first, that's a good question on how does it know to use the server? Because by default, only NuGet.org comes with the SDK.
Yeah.
So the way that's done is through a NuGet config file.
Yeah. Okay. So
.NET
you're
is smart enough to
pointing to
know
it.
that it's there.
Mhm.
Yeah. So let me actually show it to you, right? So if we open my source folder,
And then this is true for your local machine as well. You have to,
exactly.
turn on this thing on your NuGet config so it can go and
Yep.
get the stuff.
But the cool thing is you don't have to be extra clever about it. .NET SDK itself knows to look for a NuGet config at the solution level, and then it checks the NuGet config at the user level. And then if it has a machine one, like a machine-wide one, it'll check that. But the only two that matter are the ones at the user level and if there is one in the project. Here's something I recommend. Here's a pro tip, right? You should add a clear. So when you're building something, you want to have control over the circumstances that is being built in, right? There might be other package sources because of a different project, or you might be on a build machine that is a custom agent and you have multiple sources. So what you can do, this isn't a trick that a lot of people know about. You can clear all of the existing package sources and just start over with the ones that you want. So I clear anything that might be there. Then we go and add NuGet.org because we just cleared it. We're not going to have regular NuGet packages available.
Right.
And then here's the authenticated one, right? Of course, it's Telerik for us, but it can be anyone. It can be your own DevOps pipeline has a NuGet feed, and you would need credentials to connect to that, right? So how do you tell it your username and password? There's a couple ways to do it. You can do this package source credentials section, and as long as this inside credential here matches the name of the key in here, it will use the values here for that package source. The other way to do it is I have in the README tons of different information, like how to use secrets in many different ways, and you have all the build badges. But if we scroll down to, I also explain how those variables work. Okay, dynamically. So let's say you wanted to add a package source with credentials and a one-liner. You can do that by using .NET NuGet update source. That's if you know the source, or you can do .NET NuGet add source.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you give it a username and password.
Yeah. All right. So all of that should resolve your NuGet dependencies.
Yep, and that's where you would get your first problem, right? So you would, let's come back to the YAML and look at the build. Your first problem would happen here, or if you didn't do a restore and you tried to build it, you would get a bunch of errors saying, I cannot find custom package, whatever, version, whatever. It's because you didn't use a NuGet config. I tell it which one to use here. And .NET Restore will both authenticate at the same time it gets it, because it knows how to connect and say, oh, guess what? You need some credentials. And .NET looks at the thing, okay, we have a package source credential. But how did I set that? Did it by using environment variables.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no tricks down here. I don't tell it to do anything. I don't give it any username or password. It just works like that. And the way that works is because I have an environment variable that says Telerik _username, Telerik _password. And to set those environment variables, we're using something called a secret. You set these secrets and your settings. So underneath your settings tab for your GitHub repo, there will be a section that says secrets and then actions, and it's just a key value pair.
Yep.
and it just
And
works.
then
Like this is
it's smart enough to figure it out that, to marry up the secret, because your NuGet config, was literally using that.
in order for this to work, you do have to tell it that because we're setting the package source credential here. We're saying the
Yep.
username is this
That.
environment variable.
Yep.
This 2% signs on the outside of it are a cross-platform way to set an environment variable. Like you might be confused, like, oh, do I use a $sign or do I use a $sign plus ENV? Or the syntax can screw you up a little bit. But in a config file, just the 2% signs on both sides will do the job.
So here's a $1 million question. How do you write your YAML? Do you use an editor? Do you use it in browser? Like, how do you not mess it up?
I do like VS Code to do it, and it has some good IntelliSense in it, but GitHub's editor has gotten pretty good. So if I go and click, let me get rid of this so we can see what we're doing. It's come a long way. So right now we're editing the YAML file, right? And over on the right, you can see we have some actions we can pull in, or GitHub has some really good IntelliSense that it knows how to do its own workflow files. So it knows that, hey, this is not valid YAML.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's tab based, right, you might have, let's add another job right now. New job. All right, what's wrong with that? Oh, it's runs on. I'm missing a runs on, or I'm missing a using. This has come a long way. In the beginning, it was pretty like smack your head on the keyboard, or if you didn't have an example to figure it out, right? And then runs on, and it should, I believe, it should give me some options.
Yeah. I love how you are, you're organized about tabs and how it works. I saw a meme the other day where somebody was saying like, "Hey, do you remember the days where we used to write HTML in a notepad?"
Yeah.
Somebody said, "Yeah, no, Grandma, let me take you to bed. We don't do that anymore."
I saw that meme. I saw the meme. She had a walker. Yeah.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
is on a walker, but it's funny. But you got some help here. You utilize the help.
But for the most part, I've gotten used to it. This is second nature to me now, so I don't mind pulling it up and then doing it. But at the same time, like the funny thing about YAML is you might not know things are wrong until you build it. This can be the frustrating thing, right? So everything is good. The syntax is good, but something is wrong with whatever is inside your command. So this just little run command is just like a PowerShell, right? It's just CLI. It's not a special action. Like this is a special action. Uses Java or uses .NET. But if we just do a dash name run, everything inside the run is just pure shell. So that's why .NET workload works.
Could you so like as you're building this up, like could you do this incrementally? Like could you start up a new job, say, give me the .NET SDK, then run this MAUI install, then get the NuGet package? Like could you, or do you have to repeat this every single time you add something to it? Like how do you debug this? Like if you get
It's it's like there's no real stop. Like there's no like breakpoints that you can stop to make sure things work. It is basically wait till it fails. Look at the logs. So let's take a look at some of my failures, right? Of course, this one has no failures.
You're perfect. How can you have failures?
Oh, I can't find any there either. But yeah, no, this is don't get me wrong. These are basically what happens is you see it fail. It goes live. Matter of fact, let's trigger one right now, right? Let's run this. Run it on main. Oh, there we go. There's an old broken one, right? 3 months ago. Let's see why it's broken. So okay, well, pretty cool. My Android
two
path.
jobs. Yep.
Right. So one coincidence between these is that they're both on the Windows agent. But instead of guessing, let's just click it. It's too long ago. But there would be logs here that tell you there would be the same thing as you running it locally in PowerShell. You would see the same error output.
Yeah, yeah.
And we can see the live one right now.
Our good friend Phil Schnabel is here. Phil Schnabel, don't get upset. We are writing YAML. Lance is writing YAML. I'm not.
Right. I think the thing is that, like, okay, yes, there's a YAML part of it, right? That's just the structure of the workflow. Those are the instructions on what
Yeah.
order of operations. And then inside each one, you would easily become more familiar with it because it is your .NET commands.
Right. Yeah. And it's, like you said, like it's a one-time thing. You don't need to keep changing this every day.
Right. Yeah. I haven't updated this. As you can see, I didn't need to fix anything for 3 months. I've been
Yeah.
running these semi-daily builds. And right now it's running the .NET workload install command, right? So
Mhm.
remember that step in the
Yeah.
jobs? It's running that. And now it's doing the same thing that you would see in PowerShell. When that's done, it'll do the restore NuGet package and this,
Yeah.
and then this, and then this.
So
The
every
post
step
checkout,
where you get to see what it's doing and where it might fail.
this is critical because it will give you the exact error output. Right? It's like, couldn't restore NuGet packages, can't find package Y, right? Or can't build because it's the wrong SDK target. That's something you
Mhm.
might run into
Yeah.
where the
Yeah.
project is targeting .NET 8, but you only installed .NET 7.
Yeah.
Then you go back to the workflow, edit, change to .NET 8, run it again.
Yeah. Fujita was saying the problem with GitHub Actions is not YAML, but do tell, what is the problem? Is there a problem? No, it's fine. Okay, so now I remember the other thing I was going to ask while it's building. So I have a .NET MAUI project locally, and I have a CS proj which has all of my target frameworks. And when I'm building this, I might choose one over the other. But when I am ready to push this out, like I have checked my code in, like is it smart enough to know the target framework for each build, or do you have to do an environment variable for that as well?
Because the .NET MAUI CS project has multiple, you need to pick one.
Yeah. Okay.
If it only had one, it would use that as a default.
Yeah.
There
But
are ways to
if
trick
you
it
had
this way,
if you had like 3 or 4, it would not know which one to use.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
out of the box, it doesn't know which one. Because
But
as a matter of fact, the error will say that has multiple target frameworks. Please pass in a
yeah,
T
yeah.
variable. Yep.
But in your Android job, are you not specifying a target framework?
I do. I specify .NET 8 dash Android, so it
Yeah.
knows which one to use. Yep. So
Okay.
if we
So
go
you
back
can
to the
have them
workflow,
all, but you just need to make sure you specify one for each job.
exactly right. So this
Yeah.
project has all four, but for the Android build, I set it here. For the Windows build, I set it here. All the other stuff is almost identical, right? For the iOS job,
Yeah.
I set it here. And you can do a thing called a matrix, right? Where the GitHub Actions YAML lets you have the same YAML run 4 different times based on a variable. It's called a
Sure.
matrix. Kind of a cool advanced way to do it so that you don't have to have 4 separate jobs. Instead, you have one job that is run 4 times with based on the matrix. And the matrix would be .NET Android, iOS, Windows, or Mac Catalyst.
Yeah. Yeah. Fushnamel is not mincing words. Yes, you
Yep,
cannot
that's
be
pretty
wrong
much
about
what we were just talking about, right? He's like, wait for the error. If the error is there, whoop.
it. Yeah. Yeah. But again,
That's the actions, though, right? It's
yeah,
when you get it working, then you don't have to worry
yeah,
about it.
exactly. You don't
Uh,
have to do this all
yeah,
the time. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
this is the upfront investment that you have to put into it, and then it pays out after that. Of
What is
course, it's
cake?
frustrating at first.
I have not used cake.
Yeah,
Interesting. I have not used cake at
does
all.
cake work for C sharp though? I'm not sure.
I don't know
I think it's
either.
a multi project type.
I see. Okay, now cake does work for C sharp. Oh, hey, Alan Rich is here. Hey, Alan, good to see you from across the. I don't know, Lance, if you know this. Alan and me
Yeah.
are kind of across the pond, like the small pond of Lake Erie, which is actually pretty big lake. But he's in Canada. I'm on Northwest Pennsylvania. Yeah, cake is for C sharp. Okay. Here's a question, Lance. Have you used other things? Like I understand, like in the Microsoft ecosystem, it's natural for us to go to GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps. Have you used things like, or heard people use things like Bitrise or what's the other thing called? Does Firebase have a CI/CD pipeline building thing? I think it does, right? Like, have we
Probably
ever
they have
used?
almost everything. Like, but it's for NPM, usually built for NPMs. But if it's CI and the .NET SDK
Yeah,
works
you can do
nearly
it on
everywhere,
in anywhere. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I basically do for Jenkins builds and GitLab. So the GitLab build machines, and basically they give you a machine and say, here's the CI, here's the CLI, do whatever you want. There's a shell,
Hmm.
right? Give me a list of shell commands.
Yeah. Okay. More explanation
Excellent.
on
Yep.
cake. Let's see, write tasks that execute in order, spot various common actions, then you debug locally and push to GitHub Actions. Okay. Yeah.
But I imagine that to get the paths right, you would use the variables like um, local app storage or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Can you rely on C colon to be there? Because in GitHub Actions, you don't really have a C and a D like that. You would have your GitHub code root, right? You know for a fact all the relative paths from the root of your code, but the one underneath that can be A or B or D.
Yeah. I have an observation. It looks like even in the last one that failed, like your Mac OS agents seem to be running much quicker. Like, is that your experience? Like Windows 2022 takes longer?
Um, Sometimes, yeah. I think in this case, though, it is because of the build itself, right? Android takes a long time to build, and Windows, WinUI can take a long time to build. But these are also debug builds. These are very
Yeah.
simple ones. They're not like, for example, if I come over here and show you some more complicated ones without giving away any secrets.
Yeah, functional. Hold on. WinUI. That's essentially the thing that Maui is running on
Yeah.
on Windows.
So, if are you familiar with UWP? Right.
Oh, Win32.
UWP. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Another trick you can do, I don't see this very common, but you can actually define these things in your CS project. You can put a little, like this is generally done professional environments where they have very, very large projects with multiple targets, and they can do tricks with multiple proj files and then combine them and pull in other different flows. But you can use that advantage in a smaller scope like this. What you can do is you can have a property group, and then you say, okay, the condition is if it is targeting something called whatever dash Android, then we can add a couple other properties to the project file. We can add the Android key store and all this stuff. You can also set this at the command line, right? Right after MS build or .NET build, you can pass these in as parameters for the build. And I have some for a local iPhone and some for ad hoc, which is ad hoc distribution, an app store
Hmm.
release, publish a
Do
Mac
you
Catalyst,
do this? Like you said, like when it's meant for maybe bigger projects,
test
but
flight.
would you do
Yeah,
it
yeah.
for
No,
yourself?
I'll do test flight for small projects for me because
Okay.
it works through the Apple Dev Center and it's like a little bit of closer to actually being released and get scrutinized by the Apple team because it can take
Okay.
days, right? Wouldn't you rather have the ability to do an ad hoc distribution and check what it was like to get installed through the almost end user experience? And now this isn't side loading kind of ad hoc. This is test flight. They download through the test flight mechanisms. Um, it's the closest you can get without having to wait 3 or 4 days for Apple to decline you
Yeah.
because you forgot the word Android. That's happened to me many times.
Oh, okay. So maybe we, skipped a little forward. So these were builds that are producing an app package, and now you are talking about actual distribution of the app packages to the stores. So
Yeah.
what's next? Like you got your jobs lined up, and you have your app packages. Then what?
So what you can do from here, I don't have it in this example, right? But what you can do is you can upload. There are tools that you can install on your self. This is why an advantage to having a custom runner on a little Mac Mini is you can have your uploader tooling there that will upload it right
I
to the
see.
store,
Yeah.
Apple Store.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
Android's a little bit easier. Microsoft is actually easier because I have a GitHub action that will publish it for you to Dev Center. But to your point, you're in your job, you have your steps, you built and signed your package. Now you have a package that needs to go to the store. That is the CD side of things, right? CI is the build. Now we're all set. CD is now it's the distribution time.
Yeah.
And you can do that in the workflow too.
Okay, another uncomfortable question. Visual Studio App Center used to be very good at enterprise distribution. So I don't want my app package to go out to the app stores. I want to go to like my 100 enterprise users within my on-prem thing. Is there a corresponding option anywhere?
So you would use test, yeah, there is, because if it's a Windows app, the Microsoft Store has a similar thing where you can have groups of users and you publish it to that group, right? So it's a flight, a little test flight underneath it. And then from there, you can promote it to the general public, or you can keep it in that
Okay.
flight, your enterprise group.
So you
There's
kind of have
also,
to go to like the platform specific ones, like for Windows App Store, and then for
that's the
iOS,
best way to do it, yeah.
yeah,
Um,
okay.
I know what you mean. One of the things with App Center is that it had its own
Yeah, it had
ad
its
hoc
own.
distribution mechanism, right? But I would recommend going through the other ones
Yeah,
before.
maybe it's too difficult to sustain. Like you're much better off going straight to the source and
Yeah,
seeing how Apple and iOS and Android do
yeah.
distribution.
And all three of them support that, the distribution groups out of the box. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel in that case. Like I only want it to go to this level of testers or, these people.
Right.
Yeah. And it's usually built in too. So, in the Google Play Store, you're like, oh, I want to be a beta tester. Right out of the store, that user will get your early builds first.
Sure.
You don't have
Hmm.
to let them know that you might want to, but you don't have to. Like whenever
Yep.
that update is available there, because they're marked as a beta tester, it will get to their device first. Then you can
Yep.
rely on
Yep.
telemetry to give you the details.
Nice. Nice. Okay. So you got your YAML set up. It knows how to get an agent up and running, gets all the dependencies, gets all the runtime, the MAUI SDKs, does the build for you, gets the app package, and then if you want it, it will go to the publish for you as well. I think Visual Studio Code, I don't know if you use this, Lance, it actually has a new plugin where a lot of these publish commands are essentially long command line commands. So there's a way to kind of visually do this. I forget what
Yeah,
it was called, but you don't have to remember all the things every
exactly.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's an
Okay.
example of a Windows app or what it looks like to distribute to the store. This is a purely Windows only app. It's not Maui, but it is an example of. Or let me go back one. I have my developer branch, right? It's whenever I don't want to push in main, it's a feature branch or an issue branch and testing something. Everything's working good. Then we put it into main. Main only builds it. No code signing, no nothing. It's meant to just be quick in and out, right? Then I'm like, okay, now I want my testers to be able to use it. I can build a side loadable package, right? So here it's the same. It looks a little crazier, but it's the same things, same topics that we're already talking about. It just has more stuff in it. For the Windows one, we're just telling it where do we want to put the package, what platforms do I want to target, ARM64, side load only, stuff like that. But again, you see the same patterns, create a version number. One trick I
Mhm.
do here is when it's side loadable, I need to tell the manifest to match my code signing certificate. And then all I do is I just go in and I open the XML file and I change the publisher ID to match what my code signing certificate is. And this project is public if you ever wanted to look at it. Then install .NET, set up MS Build, .NET Restore, right? Same pattern, done. Now it's time to build. But I do one thing first. I have my code signing certificate stored as base 64 as a secret. So my,
Mhm.
it's kind of the certificate contains multiple things, and one of them is a private key that you don't want public. So you put it in a secret. So what I do is I just get the secret out. It's base 64. All I do is convert it to a byte array, and then I save that byte array as a file, a PFX file. Note this won't work after I think March, when PFX files stop working. I have another GitHub action that will sign it for you using Azure code signing. So you can use an HSM back key. But basically the same thing. We build the package. We now have the package. I upload it to an Azure blob. And that Azure blob is the distribution center. So if you didn't want to use anyone, you could just have a
I see.
static website with an Azure blob on it.
Roll your own.
Yep. And as a matter of fact, let's see if it still works. I haven't updated this one in a while.
Hardcore. You're just loading up packages to the blobs and distributing on your own.
Hey, look, it still works. Even though I haven't built it since 22, but it's still there and it works. So this is how you would sideload an app. I mean, how you would distribute an app on your own.
Yeah.
The cool thing about the Windows Builder, it gives you this web page too, and you just download the file and install it. But what about the store? This is the last piece of the puzzle. How much time we get?
Yeah, we are over, but we're good.
I'll be real quick on this one. So so we just did a sideload thing. What about Microsoft Store? Same thing. The only difference is we're telling it that we don't want it to be sideloadable, and we are not code signing it. You don't code sign a Microsoft Store build. Microsoft signs it instead. So that's the one difference, right? And I just set it to my Microsoft Store publisher name instead of my sideload code signing certificates publisher name. Same thing. We build it, we create the package, and I do two things. I put GitHub release so that people can get it on their own, or we can upload it right to Microsoft Dev Center. I do the uploading stuff in a PowerShell script on the side, but it's the same concept.
Nice. So is your entity on iOS or Windows, like, is it Lancelot software?
Yeah.
You know, it's the good stuff is coming from Lancelot software.
Yeah, DigiCert let me get that certificate, so I jumped on it.
Nice. Okay. All right. You go to an extreme length here, my friend, to do this right, and it's good. So you can see, like, as once you set this up, like as you build on your apps and how easy it becomes to push out updates. So the CRM app that we started, the migration process, it's all done. It's all moved over to dotnet MAUI. Is it in a spot where you feel it's ready to be pushed out to the stores?
Yep. As a matter of fact, we should be doing it soon. The only thing we're considering is maybe a little bit of a redesign. That's on the table. But as far as what it was in Xamarin.Forms, it is now in dotnet MAUI. And it's nice to see it on Mac desktop too. It's kind of cool. Yeah.
Did you do much customizations for desktop versus mobile?
Yes. Not a lot, but yes. So I wanted to make sure that the user's keyboard and mouse experience is good, right? So you go through and you do your tabs, enter tab, use all your tab stuff and make sure focus goes around correctly. And the other thing is the flyout pane. I wanted to make sure that was not too big because the shell lets you set whether you want it always shown or do you want it to be a hamburger menu or not. So I have it set that I let the user either expand it or not or lock it.
I see. So we have a navigation view which has a little bit more granularity. So if you want, you can just have like icons show on the left. So yeah, you can do fancy things, and it gets tricky. So like in my personal way, I mean, I would almost go like one device platform at a time just to make sure you're doing it right, and then take on more. Because like the moment you bring on like iPads, it's a different game. It's not just a bigger surface area, because now iPads do multitasking and they could have multiple panels. So just because you have a smaller real estate doesn't essentially mean you're on mobile, or you can have a bigger real estate where you want your desktop views, but at the same time, you may not be completely running in a desktop mode. It might be in a shrunken mode. So there are lots of nuances to getting all these things done right. But, that's the price to pay for a truly cross-platform.
Well, I have a good pro tip for that is use your desktop to deploy. Don't always have it in an Android or iOS emulator. Deploy it to Windows, right? Yeah. And you can collapse the Windows window size. And you can get to actually experience what it's like. Same thing on Mac Catalyst, right? Because Mac Catalyst is iOS essentially, and it's what you would get on an iPad.
Yeah.
You can still test a half screen size and what it's like to get suspended, maybe, but the
Yeah.
window helps a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, cool. So looks like you have migrated your Xamarin app to .NET MAUI pretty much. The app is functional, everything is good. Looks like you're polishing up the last of your CI/CD pipelines and getting ready to deploy, and then it's going to hit the stores and do the usual thing. So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
this has been quite a journey for you, and also it's kind of sets things to a reality. Like it's not a quick thing. If it's a big app, you need to put in some time and effort to make sure you have thought through all of the pieces
Yeah, just set
as
your
you migrate.
expectations correctly, right? Yes, simpler projects can be done in a weekend. But if it's a big enterprise app and you want to maybe switch over to using the new dependency injection, which I'm glad I did, right? The new way to inject the
So much better,
services, and
so
yeah,
much
it's
simpler.
it's
Yeah,
amazing. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. And some of us, like James Montemagno used to be, and still is a big fan of the app shell, which is the new default navigation. You don't have to use it; you can roll your own. But I have come around. I have seen the benefits of what that shell navigation does for you. It's nice to have that as an option, and then you can roll your own navigation if you wanted to. But a lot of the things that you see in .NET MAUI that are built in, it's nice. It's awfully
Yeah.
nice.
I mean, I knee jerked at first, but it was only because I already had a bunch of other things to do, right?
Yeah,
So don't overwhelm yourself in the beginning. Your navigation page will work. Move that, make sure it's building and it works and deploys. And then after that, you can like, okay, maybe I can do this in the shell instead. And I personally like the shell as well.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff, my friend. If nothing else, I will bring your desktop down. That's a lot of good stuff you showed off with GitHub Actions and YAML. This is, like you said, it's a one-time price to pay, but a well-established pipeline pays dividends big time.
Yeah.
From the moment you start pushing your app to the stores. All right. Yeah, very good. Been lurking, listening, Tyndall. Yeah, good to have you here. For some of us, if you are a Microsoft MVP, some of us are headed to the MVP Summit in a couple of weeks, and you're going to see a lot of the Maui folks. And it's a lot of internal discussions. But what's next for Maui? It's all getting baked in with .NET 9. The preview 1 is out. So we'll hear about what's next for .NET MAUI this year. So should be good times.
Absolutely.
I think this kind of closes the loop on the whole journey. Thank you for doing a series with me that makes it real, like how we lift and shift Xamarin into Maui.
It's good because it's not a miracle, but it's achievable and it's well worth it.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
Well said. All right, folks. I think that's a show. Hopefully, you stay well, be productive, and we'll see you on the next show.